Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen, and I'm joined by my usual broadcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw, who played for 11 seasons with the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. This is the Laidlaw and Allen Report. We come to you twice a week, talk all things hockey. And, of course, Tom, we have a Stanley Cup final that we've got to get to as well. And plus, there's some kind of news floating around. Let's start where it's always one of your favorite subjects, Jack Eichel. I saw a report a couple of days ago about perhaps the Kings have lost interest, and I saw another report that maybe they're fibbing about saying they've lost interest. And I've seen the Minnesota Wild linked to them. Right. It feels like we just can't get enough Jack Eichel news or rumors. I should say no news, just rumors.
The rumors, yes, the rumors. Well. Yeah, I mean, that is the game plan, right? And I'm assuming other GMs around the league, and rightfully so, and I guess I would do the same thing. You've got a young GM there, an inexperienced GM there in Buffalo now. So people are going to be trying to take advantage of him. And again, I would be doing the same thing if I was a general manager. But he's been around, and I'm sure he's got people who are helping him out. He's doing it all by himself, that Kevin Adams I'm speaking about. But I mean, if I believe the thing that the Kings would, we'll negotiate for a while, then it'll look like we're pulling away. And hope that, now he panics a little bit. So I can see the game plan going on for sure.
Well, I mean, I have no idea because nobody that I've talked to had given me any offers or they just said he wants a lot. But the fact that he is asking for the sun and the moon, kind of sends a message to me that, he's trying to at least act tough. He's going to give Jack Eichel away.
But the problem is, I don't like that kind of negotiation. I would rather say, hey, Jack Eichel is a premium hockey player, and everybody, there's going to be like 10 teams that are going to want him. So go to the 10 teams. What are you going to offer me? What are you going to offer me? So now this team's offering me more. If you want Jack Eichel, you're going to have to give me more instead of throwing it out there what you want. That's my feeling on it.
Well, but the problem is you're going to get the other people that want to do it a different way. So they'll turn it on to Buffalo and say, what do you want?
Yeah. But I guess, that's when you're the belle of the ball, which he should be right now, you're saying, no, that's not how this works. You tell me what you want. There's a lot of, I'm not going to lie to you. Obviously there's a lot of teams interested in this player. You got to tell me what you want. I hear you. If I was another GM, I would do the same thing. I would say, no, you tell me what you want for him, but he doesn't have to do that.
Well, I guess we'll have to see kind of how it plays out. But, boy, it sure sounds like we're going to get some, resolution of that. And, we have a lot of things happening. It's not that far off. On the 17th of July, you have to turn in your protected list.
That's right.
And I think that's an important day just from the fact that before that protection list is finalized for a lot of teams, a guy or two may have to be dealt.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to lose them. Now it looks like, for example, from what we're hearing, Colorado's issue of losing either Taves or Girard will be fixed by Eric Johnson doing a solid for the Avalanche by waiving his no move clause to put himself on, thinking that he's been beat up, he has a high salary, maybe they wouldn't take him, but
right.
Or maybe Joe Sakic called Ron and said, "What do I got to give you so you don't take our friend, Eric Johnson?"
That's what should be happening a lot, I think, right? I know teams are worried about losing players, and if you look at the list, you say, "Okay, you're going to lose this guy." But a phone call to Ron Francis, how do we fix? Here's the guy I don't want to lose.
But we've talked about that before. I mean, GMs have told me they don't want to get in the position where it's a bigger hurt that you create by giving up multiple assets than to lose one player.
Right. Yeah.
So it's complicated, because I thought your good friend George McPhee did a tremendous job of extracting a heavy toll for the use of, I won't take your guy. So, he ended up getting multiple assets.
Yes, he did. He did a good job. Yep.
I don't even remember who Anaheim was trying to protect, but they gave up Theodore to get it done. Whoever they would have lost couldn't be.
But was Theodore that good then, though?
But he had a lot of potential. I mean, I remember when that happened. There was a lot of folks that went, "Wow, boy, So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. And speaking of Seattle, and I don't quite get this one. I feel bad saying this, but they just hired as their head coach Hackstall,
Right.
who had been in Philadelphia and got fired there. He was only there a couple of years, right? He got fired.
Yeah, he wasn't there very long.
Yeah. So, and I feel bad saying it because he may be a fine coach, and obviously somebody there in Philly saw something in him. But there's other guys out there like a Rick Tocchet. Why wouldn't Ron Francis go after a Rick Tocchet instead of?
I don't know, but I mean, does this send a message of what kind of team that Ron is going to have? Because Hackstall, of course, came from the college ranks. He has teaching skills. So does that mean that Ron's going to try to get a younger team? Is he going to rely more on the younger players, use the draft?
Right. But he surely didn't. I guess I hear you on that part of it, but I think to myself, okay, he didn't last in Philadelphia more than 2 years. He's unproven at the NHL level. It's not like it's a coach that's been around for 20 years at the NHL level, then got fired in Philly after 2 years. This guy is unproven, especially when you got other guys out there that are proven coach. I mean, like a Rick Tocchet kind of guy, Bruce Boudreau. I mean, I wouldn't go after Mike Babcock myself, but there's lots of guys there that have experience, right? I mean, how about the old? He's a Montreal coach that got fired 2 year. Claude Julien's out there. I mean, I hate to put it like this, but is this Ron's starter coach? Ron Francis is going to get 2 or 3 coaches. In this deal, is this a starter coach? But I hear you. A good point. But after watching Vegas do so well so quickly,
and then Gerard Gallant was gone before. Into his 3rd year, he was gone.
Yeah, I know, and I'll still never figure that one out. I just don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never stood that one at all.
Well, apparently Gerard Gallant was Vegas'
starter coach. Do you really think that though? Like George McPhee hired him, but Brad McCrimmon fired him.
Yeah,
but George had to. I mean, obviously George got to give him the okay to fire him.
Yeah, and I don't think they hired him as a starter coach. And just like I'm sort of joking. I don't think Ron Francis is looking at it that way.
Really? Yeah.
So
I wonder what he's thinking. I guess I don't know.
Well, I mean, the word is that, and again, I have no idea whether this is true, but it's a good story that he went and he was on a scouting trip and ended up in a car talking with Hackstall about hockey and was very, very impressed with him and remembered that conversation. And Hackstall wasn't on anybody's list. Nobody had him on the radar, and he talked to him and really liked him, which is similar to the story about Ron Hextall. Ron Hextall supposedly saw him when he was out at North Dakota and had great conversations with him and ended up thinking, this guy just deserves a chance. And
maybe they should hire him to go to dinner with the general managers then, not the coach.
Well, Tom, I don't know if you know this, but you know how coaches get hired? They go in and they talk to the coach. It's called an interview. And they talk to him for like 2 hours. And then they talk to like 5 guys for like 2 hours. And then they pick one of them. I know.
Right. But they also have to know, okay, how good of a coach is he? What's he done in other places, right?
Yeah. And he was a very successful college coach. And I know the NHL doesn't, look upon that. But Gerard Gallant, a guy that you love, hasn't lasted 3 years. Does that mean he was a bad coach?
No, I think it's all different circumstances, right? Well, he was.
Well, what are the circumstances in Philly? Like, I don't know. You may be right. Like, this may be the wrong choice. I just don't know. But I guess I'm saying, I wouldn't dismiss it because he's been fired once in the NHL.
Well, I dismiss it more because of the other people that are available with more experience, right? That have a proven track record of being successful. Well, I mean, Rick Tocchet, maybe I shouldn't say that. I mean, he had a successful track record of being an assistant coach, but he wasn't successful ultimately in Phoenix. Now,
or in Tampa.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I mean, guys get fired.
Yeah.
So
Claude Julien's out there. He's won a Stanley Cup, right?
Yeah. But is he right for an expansion team? I
don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I would have hired Rick Tocchet. I mean, I think he's a good coach.
Yeah.
I thought he did a great job in Arizona. He really that team was good defensively. They were hard to play against. I liked it a lot, but I'm not going to just dismiss it just because
Yeah.
Hacksaw didn't last.
Definitely.
You
So,
know,
is there any other coaching jobs left available? Who's out there?
Buffalo
Oh, that's right. Yes.
and Arizona.
That's right.
So, yeah, but we know Tockett's not going to Arizona. So, maybe are you if you're Tockett, do you just do you set it out now and say, I'll be first man up in the fall?
Right. But Claude Julien's there. I like him as a coach. He's a proven track record.
Really good coach.
Yeah. Jacques Martin is actually there too, right? Maybe the time's passed him by. I don't know.
Yeah, but Claude Julien is a really every team he's ever been a part of has been really strong defensively. To be sure. So,
and I was surprised he got fired in Montreal, but here's Montreal in the finals, right? So,
yeah,
obviously that was a good choice.
They obviously knew something.
Yeah.
So, although it's funny, I saw somebody on Twitter, and this was now in the second round, but someone put on there, I don't care if the Montreal Canadiens win the Stanley Cup, they can't keep this guy as head coach. Now, as I'm reading that, I'm laughing because the team was doing so well, but whatever Ducharme was doing, this man just couldn't take his stuff. And
probably the best thing he's doing is going on putting on Carey Price's pads for him. That's the best thing you can do. Right?
Yeah. Well, I want to get into that, but there's a couple of things first before we get down to the fun aspect of. And you've got some news to deliver, and you told me something I didn't know when we first got on the show. A real tragedy there in Boston.
Yeah. Well, Pasternak, the fantastic player and colorful player there for the Boston Bruins. I guess he and his wife gave birth to a child about 6 days ago, and the baby just passed away. So very sad news.
Yeah, I just can't even imagine how deeply that carves at you. It's just one of the sad events that happened.
It's sad. Anytime you lose a child, right? I mean, we're both fathers, and but especially, that really doesn't matter. But you're the joy of having the baby coming into your life and everything. And then 6 days later, you lose it. So,
and then another story that you've been following is what's going on in Chicago. And why don't you explain to our
I guess dating back to 2010, I believe the date was, I believe it was their video coach had sexually assaulted a couple of players. And the players apparently went to management, right to the top, and through other people. And the story was, it was a well-known secret inside Chicago's, all the players, the staff, and everything, that this guy had, I guess, in addition, this coach had invited some interns back to his house to watch March Madness and assaulted them. They ultimately fired him, but didn't go to the police. And I wonder whether this even went to the league level to let them know what was going on. Then he went up to Michigan Tech, up in Hope, Michigan. He was up there 3 years and assaulted some more people up there, and ultimately got put. I think he gets sentenced to 9 months in prison for that. So, I mean, you and I go way back. When Sheldon Kennedy, I don't know if everybody remembers, but Sheldon Kennedy was a player at the time. He had signed with Boston. And he had been sexually assaulted by his junior coach, Graham James, when he played for the Swift Current Broncos. And that went on for years. It started when he was 14 years old, went on for years. And Graham James had abused a bunch of other young men, other NHL players. Well, Theoren Fleury has come out since then and acknowledged that, yes, he had been abused by Graham James as well. And that went on for years and years. And finally, Sheldon, he'd come to me and asked me to represent him. I guess he trusted me. He had Don Baisley as an agent, who was probably one of the most respected men and agents out there at the time. But Baisley had no knowledge of what was going on and was tied very closely to Graham James. And then so Sheldon fired Don Baisley more. I guess he knew he was going to be coming out with this and came to me. I'd known him he was playing for the Red Wings at the time. Dallas Drake was a client of mine playing there as well, and they came out publicly. He announced, he went to the police and told them what was going on. They charged him, and that was a sad story. So to see this go on again in the hockey world, not that, I mean, I think what we learned from that too is that this goes on all the time, this abuse, and people are getting away with it. And, kids' lives are being ruined by this kind of stuff. So I think it's really important that, and again, if this is all accurate, if it is accurate that people knew about it and didn't report it to the police, that's a pretty sad statement. And again, I would really think, like if somebody knows about this stuff, it isn't enough just to fire them. They need to go to the police and make sure that this stops and doesn't happen to more kids. So,
I mean, you're passing your problem on to someone else is what happens here, and there's two issues here. Obviously, the crime itself, but there's also and some of it is with intentions of sparing the victims and so forth. But you have to go to law enforcement on this, otherwise it will continue. So if that doesn't turn out to be true exactly the way it was presented.
And people need to remember that if these sexual predators are doing this, you can't just say that it was a one-time thing.
Yeah,
it's not a one-time thing. This is sickness. Graham James case, he was a sick man, and it really hurt a lot of kids' lives. Yeah.
Well, and we're going through this in Michigan on a very large scale because at the University of Michigan there was a doctor there who's now being accused, and over 800 athletes have signed a petition, and they're involved in a lawsuit against Michigan because they allowed this to go on. And what's come out is that perhaps the great Michigan football coach, Bo Schembechler, had some knowledge of it. His family disputes that, but his son was the one who came out and said that he is one of the victims, and he had told his dad about it. But the rest of the family is denying all this.
Oh, I didn't know they were denying it. I heard about the son coming out. I didn't know.
Yeah. So it's a very big deal, and it's a very similar case. We have the criminal act, and then what we would have, and I don't like to use the word cover up because, but that's what an effect it had if somebody did know about it. And some of the athletes said yes, they did inform people at the school, and nothing was done. So if that's the case, again, that's another issue that has to be addressed because I mean, you were right. You perpetuate this if you don't act.
Well, and I don't know about you, but when the Sheldon Kennedy case happened, it was like really opened my eyes up. They should have been opened already, but it opened up to the effects it had on the kids, and that was the big difference. I think you're the same way. Once you see that and you learn how it affects these kids, how terribly it affects them, you realize this is serious stuff. I mean, in the Graham James case, some kids committed suicide.
Well, and it's very similar. Like in your case, when you were talking about the Sheldon Kennedy, these were young teenagers. You were dealing with young athletes at the University of Michigan. I mean, your freshman football players, they're 18 years old, but you come in and you're getting a team physical, and you're thinking, well, this is what you do if you want to play at Michigan. And it seems like, well, you're going to say something, you're going to do something, but I guess it's far more complicated than that.
That's a great point, Kevin, to bring up. You're right. Like some people may be sitting there saying, well, why didn't these big football players say something? Why didn't these tough hockey players say something? Well, these predators are intelligent. They go to kids that they know won't talk because they're afraid they're going to lose their scholarship. People think that they're gay, all these different things.
Right. So, yeah, that's it. I mean, they're very adept at picking the right players and so forth. So anyway, that's not a subject that we want to talk about, but it's something we should talk about because it's no different than anything else. When you are aware of something happening like this, it's really incumbent upon you to report it or to take some action to prevent it from happening again somewhere else.
Yep, absolutely. Very good point. Excellent point.
All right. Well, let's talk about the Stanley Cup final. And, here we are. We're going to have a big game here. And, our big series. And I'm really struck by a couple of things. Number one, I think that Montreal has played every bit as well as Tampa Bay has. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yep.
They've got a goaltender who's playing like he's the best goalie in the league. And Tampa Bay has a goalie who is said to be the best goalie in the league, and is they had 3 clinching games and Vasilevsky had a shutout in all 3 of those games.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
All 3 of those games, he pitched a shutout, including in the clinching game against the Islanders, which was a really, really difficult series. It was 1-0. So it was a terrific game.
Right. So they've got the great goaltender. They both have great defensemen. Now Shea Weber is on the backside of his career, but
Right.
He's still a dominant player. His shot. They got Hedman in Tampa, so those two kind of offset. But there's other defensemen for Montreal played well too. Petrie's played pretty well. And then they got that little Caulfield there. What's his name?
Yeah, Cole Caulfield.
Yeah.
Well, here's my take on it, though. I think Montreal is better defensively. Like Hedman's a great defenseman, but he's not like Shea Weber. He's a roller. He's up and down the ice. He creates things. Not that he's not good defensively, because he is. But Shea Weber just takes care of business defensively. That's all he worries about. And I think Montreal's forwards are more disciplined defensively than Tampa Bay's forwards. I just think that's their game. Danault, has done a tremendous job as a checking center. But Tampa Bay's offense is so much better than Montreal. Yeah. So, there's going to be a give and take there. So, I don't know. How do you see this coming out?
Well, I didn't think Montreal was going to beat Vegas, right? But they beat Vegas. I think it's one of those deals that all along the way here, we thought that Montreal wasn't going to go any farther, but they've always found a way to do it. So, I don't think they're going to beat Tampa. But having said that, they beat Vegas, but I didn't think they beat them as well. Montreal, like certain teams have that where they get on a roll at the right time. They don't get many injuries. Guys are scoring goals. You didn't think maybe we're going to score that many goals. So, you know what? To be honest with you, I'm going for both teams. I think if either team wins, it's a great accomplishment. You know what though? If I'm going to be forced to pick somebody, I'll pick Montreal then. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I have picked against Montreal in every round. And I have been impressed with Montreal in every round. I've said just wonderful things about how they're playing and everything else, and I keep picking against them. Yeah. And I feel like they would want to pay me money not to pick against them again. And I am. I just think Tampa's a better team. Now, that doesn't mean I'm disrespecting Montreal, because I'm not. But let's give Tampa Bay its due. They won last year. They came in and they beat a really good Islanders team. That was a good series. Yeah. And that team played hard. But when you measure Tampa Bay's talent level with the Islanders, there really wasn't a comparison. I don't think. They were better in goal. I'm talking about Tampa Bay. Yeah. And not that the Islanders were bad in goal, but Tampa Bay was better. Defensively, the Islanders were probably better, but offensively, Tampa had the more the higher talent level. So
here's what's going to swing in Montreal's favor. Montreal went 6 games right against Vegas. They've been off for 4 or 5 days now, right? They've been off.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay had to go a hard physical series against the Islanders. They went 7 games. They just finished on Friday night. Here they are now playing on Monday. So, maybe it doesn't hurt them as much the first 2 or 3 games, but if this series goes to 7 games, 6 or 7 games, it's going to start to wear on them a little bit. And they're banged up. Kucherov was hurt there. I'm assuming Montreal is going to be as physical as possible against them. They should. But that's the one thing I think is going to go in their favor. But you know what? Maybe it doesn't get to 6 or 7 games either with Tampa.
Well, the weariness, I think it will be a factor if it goes long. But I also think there's something to be said for the momentum of just keep going. You're winning, you feel good, you just beat the Islanders. Let's play again. Let's get suited up. Let's get out there and let's do it.
Very true.
But it does wear on you. I've had so many players, and you can speak to this better than I can, but I've had many players tell me through the years that, when people talk about a physical series, it's not so much that you're getting roughed up. It's how tired you're getting pushing big bodies around. all the time.
Yeah.
It
changes the way. Yeah. If they're pounding you every time too, it changes the way you play. You're maybe not intimidated, but you've got to move the puck quicker. That guy's coming to get you. So it's,
stressful. It's stressful when you're coming
You know,
in.
you brought up a really good point too. If Tampa's favored to win, like Montreal has ridden this us against the world mentality all along here. Right?
Yeah.
Just everybody, including you and I, is that they're not going to win. I think that hurt. Like if they get, let's say Tampa gets down in a game, they go, oh God, you know, we can't lose to Montreal. We're supposed to be the favorite to win the Stanley Cup. You know, that pressure bounce on them too. But yeah.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about Marc Bergevin too. Just the job that he's done. Like, I don't know, is there a more pressure-filled GM job than, I guess, Toronto, Kyle Dubas, but it's the same.
But it's there's the history with Montreal though. It's like they're the New York Yankees of
well, that's right.
So yeah,
and I love too. I see in the photos of Mark sitting up in the press box with his long hair. Now, you know, he's got the COVID hair. You know, I've got the COVID beard, but he's got the COVID hair.
Yeah,
and you know, I'm just thinking, geez, what a stressful job, because you know, he's getting it in 2 languages. You know, 12 months out of the year, and the like hockey is a religion in Montreal. Like when the priests give homilies at the Catholic Church, they pray for the Canadians, and you know, you go in there on a playoff day, and the cab driver will ask you what you think is going to happen in the game. You know, like people are just into it, and there's the horde of media that covers that team in 2 languages is just incredible. And you know, he's been bold. Like, you know, he's not a guy sitting back, you know, building through the draft and taking his time. He's out there swinging at every pitch. He's hacking away. You know,
definitely.
Like,
PK Subban was that was a big move, right? I mean, I think a great move. You got Shea Weber as a leader, even though he's older. You know, I'll never forget Montreal too. When Wayne Gretzky traded to LA, we were in Montreal on a Saturday night, hockey night in Canada. And I'll never forget Ray Scampanella, the old linesman. I was on the bench for the starting faceoff, and he's at the blue line. He's right there in front of me, and the building, you just feel the electricity in the building. It was, you know, Wayne's there. It's a Montreal Canadiens. Larry Robinson was still in Montreal and everything. And Scampanella turns to me and goes, Tommy, this is unbelievable. Like, he was so fired up. This is a guy that's been around a long time. He was so fired up to be doing that game.
Cool. Well, I mean, you know, it's so hard to describe. Like, I mean, like, you know, even when you're a reporter, I remember when I first started covering the NHL, like I went into Montreal for a playoff game, and they have like the press room food, which is, you know, and every other place, it's, you know, just hot dogs stacked on top of one another. You go in Montreal, there's tablecloths, and you know, there's candles and wine bottles, and you know, you're going like, wow, you know, it's just so big, and it's so hard to
the only problem I'm having in Montreal right now is they only limited to 5,000 people in the building, whatever it was. And outside, the crowds are just stacked right against each other. They're packed right on top of each other. You know, it's like, for sure. And you know, just going back to Bergevin too, like, you know, like look at all the things. Like every time there is a guy that's in the trade market, you always hear a Bergevin rumor. That, you know, he's poking his nose at the Jack Eichel situation. You know, he reminds me of Ken Holland, who, you know, they leave no stone unturned. Definitely.
Like, you know, I'm sure he called. I'm sure he said, well, I know Tom Layla doesn't like him, but I'm going to call anyway.
He probably does say that, right? Like, he's probably afraid to call me because I'm going to try to talk him out of it, but he go ahead.
Yeah, and the funny thing about Bergevin is, and I'm writing a column about this today if you want to go to hockeybuzz.com later on. But, you know, when he played, he was known as one of the biggest humorists and jokers in the league.
Yes.
Like, he was such a funny guy. I used to do this thing every All-Star game where I'd create this mythical party, and I'd send out invitations to 35. Wouldn't send them out, but I would say I was sending them out to 35 people. It would be the 35 people you'd want at a party to have fun. And I put Bergevin on my list every year. I think you were on the list one time. I invited you to the party. But, you know, he just was so funny. Like, he had a great line for almost everything, every occasion. And, you know, he was a big practical joker. And he kept everything loose. And you know what? He was a hard-nosed player. Like he worked hard at staying in the game. So,
you know, we should do that again sometime. We should do that and then come on the show and do our 35 people, compare them.
Yeah, like who would be on that just off the top of our head?
Well, Glenn Healy is a funny man. Like,
I know, sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'd bring Glenn.
So is it just based on being funny, or is it just
no, just guys that were interesting? You'd want them there, or you would carry the conversation, or maybe we just want to rub elbows with like maybe who they would bring as a plus one.
So Clark Gillies would be another one too. He's got quite a personality too. We had him on our show one time, our Thursday show.
Yeah. We'd have to bring in like I would always want to bring Gretz in because he's always got a lot of stories to tell. But current players, I'm like trying to think who we'd want.
I hate to say it now because what he's gone through, but Pasternak seems like he'd be an interesting guy to have the show.
Yeah, it's an interesting interview, but I think Patrice Bergeron I'd want. I find him to be a very likable guy, and plus he's an elite level player. Say who's married to somebody because we want some plus ones to get.
Oh, that's right.
Anybody married to an actress or?
Gretz covers that too.
Yeah, he does. We get Janet.
Well, isn't Dion Phaneuf still married to that actress?
Yeah, but I'm not sure. Dion's current, and so
I hate to say it, but it'd be interesting to have Sean Avery there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who else is married to an actress? Well, how about Miller, his wife, the goalie Miller, that just retired?
Ryan Miller. Yeah.
She's not.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, anyway, I was just looking for to give us a little celebrity corner as well. But I'm sure there's.
I got to tell you, the guys I do my Thursday show with. I mean, I love you to death, and I love doing the show with you. But all three of those guys have got different personalities: Ron Greschner, Dave Maloney, and Larry Melnick. They're good. They're good.
I just did. As we've mentioned, I'm writing a book with Bernie Nichols, and he played, of course, with Ron. And he just had told me a story about. Actually, just this morning about that Carol Alt was a good golfer. And,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he had gone golfing with Ron and Carol, and he told me a little story about that. That'll be in the book.
There you go,
Mike Fisher. Yeah, that would be good. Now we're doing country western.
Oh, so, that's perfect. Oh, yes.
And Mike's actually a fun guy. Like I enjoy talking to Mike.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, thanks, Susan. Yeah, that's a good.
How about Stu Grimson? Be a good guy to have there too, wouldn't he?
Oh, Stu would be good. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
It's another good. Kevin Weeks is excellent too. I've done some events with Kevin. He's good.
Well, we need some current players. I'm thinking. I'd want to bring Sid. I like Sid.
Who's actually a very funny man is Chris Kreider. He's a very intellectual guy. Very funny.
Yeah,
he's the one. He taught himself Russian. Sometimes the Russian players, when they come over, if they can't speak English, he'll be the translator for them. So they'll tell him something and try to translate it to the coaches, and he'll tell the coaches something different than what the kids are saying in Russian.
That's awesome. I think we need to bring Alex Ovechkin too.
That'd be a good.
And there's some other guys. Who else do I know?
He mentioned before. I know he's not a current player, but Kenny Holland is a really fun guy too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, there we go. Matt Martin and Sydney Esiason, Boomer Esiason's daughter. That's a good one.
Yeah, that is real good. Yeah.
Yep. Actually, he was on Boomer's show this morning here locally and was talking about getting beat out. Really, real character guy. You can really tell how much he cared about his teammates and talking about how much the team isn't going to probably look the same next year because of the cap and expansion and all that. So.
Yeah, he ended up this morning too on in my interview with Bernie. We were talking about a player that I think Ty Domi. You knew Ty Domi, right?
Yeah.
Ty Domi was in his first year and had it was in an exhibition game, and a lot of the veterans weren't playing, but they went to the game, and Ty Domi beat up like 3 guys. Right. And Bernie Nichols was driving a Jaguar then, and when it was done, he gave the keys to Ty Domi and told him to drive it the rest of the training camp for him. He said because when he was in LA, Mike Murphy and Dave Taylor and some guys took care of him, and he thought, I should take care of the rookies. So,
cool.
We got to drive his Jaguar for.
I remember when Darren Langdon, my client, first came to New York Rangers. Mark Messier was the captain, and Darren Langdon came into practice like the second day or whatever. And there was a suit in his stall, like $1,000 expensive suit. To me, that's an expensive suit. Didn't know where it came from. And asked the trainers, and they just said, "Mark bought it for you." Didn't say a word to him. Just gave him the suit. Wanted to make sure he felt like he was welcome in the locker room. And
that's awesome.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It was funny in my last year USA Today when we were trying to get, and it's hard. I mean, in the real world, it's hard to get as many people to read hockey stories, and this just grinds at hockey fans when I tell them this. But like the NBA, the readership of stories is so much greater than in the NHL. They're not even in the same ballpark. As much as we've expanded the footprint of hockey, the NBA is just bigger, and a lot of it has to do with their star power. Like if you put LeBron or Steph in a headline, and you get to read a lot more people. And we were talking about, we had a story of when LeBron gave everybody on his team suits. And like almost 500,000 people read that story in USA Today. And we were talking about it was an off day for the NHL in the playoffs. And, they asked me, well, what do you got for us that, can measure up? And I said, as far as I know, nobody in the NHL gave anybody any suits. So I don't know what I'm going to be able to write today. And, now I hear the story that actually somebody did give somebody. I'm not sure 500,000 people would have read that story.
Yeah, I know. But it is true. You talk about LeBron, right? He's more than just a basketball player now. Like he's like a figure.
Well, and you need to get to the point where your stars, are bigger actually than the game. Like we had one of those guys in Wayne Gretzky. Like Wayne Gretzky, you could put him in the headline and people would read that no matter what that is. There were people who couldn't name all the teams in the league, but they knew Gretzky was the best player, So
do you think that's a personality that's built in with hockey players too? Like P.K. Subban was actually very good for the league, but I can see where his teammates just would not want that around, right? Like he was
that's for sure. It's frowned upon. We talk all the time about it's a team game and all that kind of stuff. We don't want our players to color outside the lines. And in the NBA. The guys are more, they let their personalities hang out.
Yeah, totally. So, and it's amazing too. Like, and I really do mean, I think we talked about this before. PK really was good for the league. If he'd had to stay at an elite level as a player and had continued to have that personality, I think he would have been good for the league. But again, then you see the teams that win, they just don't have that on their teams, right? I mean, it's all about the team all the time.
Yeah, well, it is. Well, it's a different kind of sport because in the NBA, I mean, if you have like 3 great players, or even 2, you can make hay. 2 great players, doesn't do you anything in the NHL. Like you
see that in Edmonton, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we need, like you were just talking about Matt Martin. Well, he's a very important player on a really good team, and because of that, I think everybody feels in hockey you got to blend in. So.
Speaking of blending, okay, so the really important stuff. Did the great Mrs. Terry Allen see my stir fry that I made yesterday?
I don't know. I haven't chatted with her about that, but people are trying to get. I hope this will go off here. So
this is really important stuff. What do you got? Some toys? The grandkids' toys or what?
No, I just got my phone here.
All right. Well, this is a good show today. So you're going. You're picking Tampa still, correct?
I'm taking Tampa. I'm taking them in 6, and I'm doing Montreal people service because if I've picked against them the whole time and they've had great success. And I remember one year I did that with the New Jersey Devils and they went all the way to the Cup.
There you go. So that's it. So game 1 is tonight in Tampa, correct? Yes.
Yes. Yep, for sure.
So. I'm gonna have to go Montreal in 6, but I think Tampa will win tonight.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah,
I always felt too. And some of my friends give me grief on this, but I always figure the game 1 doesn't really count that much because you're just feeling each other out. Nobody's like the series starts in game 2. It feels like to me.
Right. So it's going to be a split coming out of Tampa. So Tampa's going to win tonight. Montreal's going to win the next game.
Yeah. So anyway, all right. Well, we appreciate everyone for watching. You can read me at hockeybuzz.com or at Detroit Hockey Now. And Tom, tell us.
And again, you can listen to the radio version of this show at 365 Sports, which is on radio.co at 365 Sports. Everybody have a great day. Good luck watching the game tonight. And we'll see you guys on Wednesday.